great.
We don't figure it out though until half of the day. So,
Exactly.
hey you guys.
Welcome,
Pure
everybody.
coincidence.
I missed you all terribly.
Yeah, missed you
Although we've
too.
seen all of you in some form, except Clara, um, since the festival.
Yeah, that's true.
Um,
In some
Oh,
way.
it's about a month ago, right? Today's the 14th.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, exactly a month ago. Woo, time has flown.
Oh. I'm so sad that I couldn't see everybody's. That was the only sad part for me.
You
Well,
got better.
you got busy in town, didn't you?
Yeah.
yeah.
Busy schedules. Understand.
Clara and Dennis were trapped here, so they had.
They were held hostage against their will.
Schedule.
I'm first of all, I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. There, now I can see.
Change our name. Too.
Change our names. Oh, you
Yeah.
don't like being Annie Morrison either?
I don't. It's almost as bad as being Mr. Morrison.
You have to combine your names, like Brangelina. You could be like
I'd do that.
what would that be? Blan.
Annie and Blake. Annie and Blake.
Yeah.
Annie and Blake. Annie and
Annie
Blake.
and
Annie and Blake.
Yeah.
Annie and
Annie
Blake.
and
Yeah.
Blake.
Ambi.
Annie and Blake.
Ambi, I like Ambi.
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 I
Okay.
like J-Lo.
Bland.
No.
I like Bland too.
Bland.
Although that sounds like Bland.
Enough of this silliness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, let's get to the other silliness.
Curious.
so I've just
can't help being
started
silly.
recording, but I'm not going to have this in here. I just want to get a nice clean start. So welcome everyone.
Thank you.
So good to see you all. It's been like a month, you were saying, and I have to tell you, when the festival ends, Blake and I really go into a bit of depression because we've been working so hard to get you here, and then you're here, and then we have the roller coaster that we have, and then you leave, and it's really sad for us.
I had actor blues too, and I was texting Dennis about it. So Dennis heard my actor blue tales. I miss you.
I definitely had them too. It was like for me since February, I've been working on this show with you guys, and it's in various forms. And yeah, after it ended, I was like, now what do I do? Where do I go? What do I do?
Well, that's something we need to talk about. We do need to talk about where you can go next. I know Clara is pretty savvy about getting herself in other festivals. Do you want to talk to them about how you get your stuff into festivals? And
Sure. It's so funny, actually. I was just talking to Greg Bodine, who I don't know if you know, and also Heather Massey about this exact thing. Heather Massey, a former Sarasolo human and fabulous Hedy Lamarr show. And I thought that they all had a secret sauce, and they thought that I had a secret sauce. Like, oh, so you're working with a booking agent? Tell us everything. And then three of us were like, no, we're all just hustling. I mean, yes, like there might be a booking agent here and there that comes in to help, or like a friend of a friend of a friend. But it's all just sort of next show, and keeping those relationships going. So Heather gave me a really great suggestion that I'll do moving forward, and actually have an idea to propose to Annie and Blake. I don't know if it's offline and online, but anyway, the post show with the Q&A, holding a Q&A for every show and asking the audience, where do you think this show should go next? Who do you know that might really like it? Who do you know who might really want to book it? And that's great feedback. I'm going to go and implement that moving forward. And then a lot of grant writing was their theory too.
Exactly. I know at one time Valerie had, and this was several years ago, she had concocted a list of different festivals and what their requirement was. Like, do you have to pay a participation fee, yada, yada, yada. But I think that list may be antiquated by now. So that's a question I'd like to, because I would think it'd be great if we could have that list to give to, especially those of you who are in development and then want to know what the next step is. I think it'd be great. So that's a goal of mine, is to gather a list together that's more current than the one that I've had in the past.
That's really great, and I think actually Heather would be a great, and Valerie would be, great resources for that, because they are actively doing that for the last decade. I think the other thing we can talk about is where our locals go after this, because because of the way this worked. We had two locals who
Well, one local, one semi-local.
well, no, we have two
Paula had to go
locals.
all the way over the
Yes, we have
bridge.
two
Well,
locals.
you know,
Big Bay.
just give.
Where that go? Especially since we are doing more and more development, because that's a big part of that. But so you were having a talk with Greg Bodine and Heather. Were they giving any more insight about
Does
that?
anybody know who Greg Bodine is, by the way?
I don't.
I don't.
Take it away, Clara.
Okay, he's a dear friend of mine who I met in the simulated patient world. He's also a great solo actor and a great ensemble writer for people. He specializes in H.P. Lovecraft mythology and does some really great Edgar Allan Poe solo man shows. It's just wonderful, dear friend. What was the question? Sorry.
Who is he? Oh,
They
well.
didn't know who
romance
he is.
partner.
So now they know. There you know.
There we know.
Oh.
So tell me about how you got to this piece that you all had written. Where did the idea come from? Clara, I know, this is a further exploration of your piece. Paula has a new idea for a cabaret show, having been with us with another cabaret. Dennis, too, had been with us doing his monology, but wanted to further his exploration in a little bit different way. And Sylvia, you came fresh with a new idea of a solo play, which kind of became a quasi little musical. How
And
did
that I wasn't expecting that at the beginning. That just
go
kind
ahead,
of
Sylvia,
evolved.
start. Tell us about that.
Well, I knew that I wanted to tell the story through the narrator, through the AI virtual assistant as the narrator. And I wanted her to go on a journey where she tries to develop feelings and see what the human experience is like. And then I got this idea to have the callers sort of giving her the journey instead of her actually physically going, because I thought staging that would be kind of, I got stuck there. I thought, how am I going to stage this? So then I thought, the phone calls, the questions calling in. And then I wanted it to be about music because I had the title, Send in the Clones. I wanted her to sing this song very robotically at the beginning and then with feeling at the end. And what I did was I just took other songs that some of which I had in my repertoire already, and I kind of brought them all together. And Send in the Clones was original for this piece, but the other songs I kind of tweaked a little bit. And yeah, so it was about an AI having feelings through music and through observing humans.
And it was lovely.
It was.
And you're also very skilled at a parody. Writing
Yeah.
parody. You have it. That's been part of your thing that you've done.
I've written a lot of parodies. Yeah.
So it only lends itself perfect to have a parody.
I love it. To me, it's poetry. It's because it's basically lyric writing, but I love taking well-known songs, and they're not. I try to always have a message in the parody. So what I did with this one was I took old songs from maybe between the 40s and the 80s, let's say, and put them to new themes. So talking about technology, talking about the internet. And so I love that kind of nostalgia of the old music, the old melodies, but the current themes. And because a lot of songs nowadays, songs on the radio are for young people. I mean, they're about like first love or breaking up with people and all this stuff. And there aren't lyrics about people like us who, like.
Amen. Preach on. Amen.
Yeah. So that's kind of who I write for.
Were there challenges for you then to then stage it? Tell us about
yes, and you guys helped a great deal there. I mean, you came in as my creative consultants and had the idea of the cabaret microphone and the bar stool and all that. And I knew that she was going to be sort of a face. I wanted to be in a black. I thought it would be in a black box at first, so I had this idea of being in a black bodysuit, and then I had the idea of what does she look like? She's a sound wave. So, the little Siri thing that appears at the top of your laptop is like rainbows, right? So I thought, rainbow scarf. I'll just transform the scarf. Whenever I'm a different person, I'll transform the scarf. So that much I knew. And then, but to make it interesting and have variety to move around the stage, that's where I needed that direction, that outside direction.
And that
It's a great collaboration.
We got stimulated by actually what you were doing. So all we did was answer what you already had an idea of. So paying attention.
It was great working with you, as
Absolutely.
always.
I think, you know, something we learned too was it was about your sound because you had a particular concern because you had a dead mic attached to as a costume prop,
Yes.
and you also took it off at times and put it back on. And when we were first talking about costume, you also knew that you had this scarf.
Hmm.
And it just seemed like it would be very complicated to get a mic, you know, set for you that would not get interfered with.
That's right.
So we settled on the fact that it had to be there for brightness. You had to be mic'd because there's a difference in that kind of room sound. And same thing we discovered with Paula too. That so we placed it here.
Hmm.
And this is something where you can't know until it really happens. That when we had your first show, for me it wasn't bright enough
Hmm.
for me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see a big change, and what we discovered is that our incredible technical director Steve had a different idea of what that sound should be, and that this is just something that we would later now from now on be aware of and really communicate, because he thought it should be a more natural sound, and all he was doing is trying to make you a little bit brighter or louder, and we felt it could be really enhanced further. And once he did that, I was so satisfied with the second show because the sound was really was great and came into it.
Right.
But these are little simple things that we can't know, especially if we have a pop-up theater where we don't know the technical things. Clara, we'll talk more about your concerns about getting everything together technically, because you had to deal with the same setup. And
Well, let's go to Clara. Clara, tell us about your piece, because it's got quite a history.
Yes, it started when I was 17 in the wings of a theater where I was doing a show about Karl Marx's best friend and the housemaid luncheon, a 3-person play. And then I grew and grew and grew this show, which I'm very fond of, Manifesting Mrs. Marx. And I really wanted to come to this festival this year with Annie and Blake with Manifesting Mrs. Marx 3.0 as a virtual reality augmented hybrid show, right? Where you're dealing with avatars, you're dealing with the audience, maybe being able to control the puppet element of who Mrs. Marx is through avatar control and projection art, and mixed realities.
We know what avatar is, but there may be people listening who have not a clue what you're talking about.
And we also know what general projection is too, but in this context.
Yes.
Tell them a little bit about what that meant.
So the avatar, kind of like the movie Avatars, where you have a different version of you that you've designed and made and can control. And it either exists in a virtual reality headset, so you put on funny goggles and you're in this other universe in a 3-dimensional space where you're seeing all that, or you can see what someone's seeing in that by projecting the image like a movie on a wall of what that person's seeing. So that was one component of the show. The other component of the show was this mixed reality, it's a technical name for it, where I can be on a stage as Clara, and I can be moving and dancing and saying poetry, and Annie might be on the other side of the stage, and she has an iPad, and in that iPad she's able to paint around my body, and then we're projecting that image onto a wall so the audience can see themselves with Clara on stage, Annie on stage, them in the audience seats, and there's art being created around all of us. It's almost like they're immersed in a 3-dimensional sculpture through a digital world. And I had done some of this work in a festival in New York City in September of this year. So I knew it worked, and I wanted to do it in a show, and it was meant to work, and it just kind of it didn't. There's still some growth there. But I will say in the virtual technology, Sarasolo, Clara defense, but that particular series of events for Clara, everything didn't want to work, even QLab, which is the standard sound system for all theaters from the beginning of time. So like, it wasn't just the high-end tech. There was something the gods wanted me to learn, and that was, can I bring a show to Annie and Blake that's just the human body in space? So we ended up doing something that I think is actually very, very, very powerful.
I still feel that if you were to do the piece that you'd like to do would only be in specific places. It would be very hard to
I
do.
agree.
And,
Yeah, I agree.
And I hope you will have that chance in a
Me
theater that has all those components. So you don't have to worry about any of that.
Me too. Yeah. So, you know, from a technique perspective, because it was pop-up, there was luxury in the fact that it was pop-up. It was very intimate. It was very beautiful. It was transforming the space. The complications with a highly tech show when it's pop-up is, as you were saying before, Blake, for the other shows too with Sylvia's, you don't know the levels in the room, so it's going to change stuff. Also, the Wi-Fi had some issues too. The Wi-Fi was fine, but because we're in a different building with other elements to control, and I had all this tech gear, it took time to integrate the tech gear with the Wi-Fi, and so that also created some hiccups. However, I'm very excitingly right now creating the teaching artist version of devising theater with technology. And I will bring that to you both and see if we can implement it as solo
I
education.
think we might have an audience and students who would love to drink that in.
I love it.
Well, I must say though, because having the stage manage these shows,
Yes.
Clara, we had to watch. We knew that this wasn't going to work the way she wanted to do it. After trying to do a very long tech, and she went home. This is what a trooper she is. She went home and thought of, okay, I'm going to have to wed an older way that I did it with my new stuff to make this work. Came back like that. This sound, this thing, ding, ding, bing, bing, and the audience was wowed by it. So as stressful as that was for you, it was fascinating. And I wish we could have had a documentary on all of that, because it was a great way
A lot of
for
hair pulling.
students to see how you have to adapt and how you do it and how well you do it.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, and remember what you're going to say. Paula, you had a response to the show.
I did. Okay. Clara, when I had the privilege of meeting you officially back in the spring, and you presented, parts of your show and all, I was sitting there thinking, okay, clearly this woman is extremely talented. I don't know if I'm smart enough to follow what she's doing. So I was a little intimidated at first. Okay. But when I got to see what you did, what was the final product last month, what were my words to you when I saw you in the lobby? I was just spellbound, because it was lovely. I felt very much like a layman watching your craft and how you put it together, because there's so many technical aspects to it. But I was like a sponge, soaking it up and loving every second. But I went into it last month knowing, okay, it's Clara, so I know it's going to be awesome, but I don't know what to expect. And it was truly just as charming as it could possibly. I loved it.
That means the world. I really appreciate that, honestly. I was gonna make a joke that I like to make art that like makes people fearful. But
God, and I blew it. I'm so sorry.
No, I really.
So Paula, you then had to come in. Paula came to us with an idea of a cabaret show, and we started creating a little documentary on how to put a cabaret show together. Because Paula just really wanted to dive right in and develop. In fact, we just met last week, or actually a few days ago, to continue adding to it, and so that eventually it'll be a full, wonderful documentary on cabaret development. But you came to us, talk a little bit about your history with the piece, leading into what you did in the summer, and then leading into the festival here with us.
Sure. Well, first of all, I had the privilege of doing the festival for the first time. I think our first go round was 2017. And then I got to come back and do kind of an encore performance of the first cabaret with a different piano player. So there was kind of a back to the drawing board somewhat with that, but it went well. And then I was ready to start a whole other theme. And one night over dinner, hubby just said, well, why don't you do a cabaret about relationships? Well, it sounds like such a broad concept. And I thought, okay, I'm going to have to shrink this down because that can sound kind of like a little too generic. So that's when I decided I'm really going to explore very much so the non-romantic relationships that we all have in our worlds, because most people's minds automatically go to the whole romance thing. So I wanted to explore different types of relationships. And having built a cabaret, this was my second go round at it. So it went much smoother in the sense that I knew what I had to do, which was write my stories first. Because, you know, you guys have heard me probably tell ad nauseum when I first started learning from Ann, you know, I had in the back of my mind my favorite list of songs that I wanted to sing, you know. And so I would try to cram my story so I could sing my song. You know, but this time I truly I spent the whole summer writing stories. Some of them were based on real life, the names to protect the innocent, so to speak. Some were pure fiction. Others were kind of a combination of the two. And then I kind of did what Sylvia did, basically the Great American Songbook. You know, you find cool songs to kind of match your stories. And I have established a really good relationship with one of the local community theaters here in the area. And I said, hey, would you guys be interested in being my guinea pig venue? And they said, absolutely. And it just so happens that the time slot that they gave me was their big annual fundraiser. No pressure. I don't know if I can put enough panties in this seats. Oh my gosh. But I was very blessed. And mine really, I think, Annie, you and I talked about when we did it at the City of Largo Performing Arts Center under the production of 8 O'Clock Theater. It did come across really kind of like a musical because of the lighting. I mean, I was blessed to be lit by Dalton Hamilton. Everybody knows Dalton Hamilton. He does a lot of the professional theaters all over the place, and he just happens to be the lighting designer for 8 O'Clock. So we had all the bells and whistles, this huge stage, world-class lighting, world-class piano, bass, and drum combo, acoustic grand. I think I said it the other day. We had Cinderella Went to the Ball, and we lived to tell about it. Found out during Tech Week that it was 45 minutes too long. So Annie kept me from hyperventilating, and we figured out what needed cutting. And so that was a little nerve-wracking. And then, so it went off fine. But then when I got to do the same show, but at the pop-up theater, it was a totally different experience. Very small, intimate. Jason, my player, was not able to play live, so he put his tracks, but one of his day gigs is putting together professional tracks for touring companies. How lucky did we get? And then, of course, Andy's technical, her talent in knowing when to put the button for the underscoring and all that. That just amazed me in and of itself. But it was a totally different venue. But I got to tell you, it was fun going to the ball as Cinderella, but I truly relished the storytelling last month.
Yeah.
There's no comparison.
Well,
There's no comparison.
If your show in cabaret sense can be a concert, that's great. But if it can also survive the intimate, like Feinstein 54 below in New York, or Birdland, a small little intimate space, then you know you really got something. And I think that was the great experience for you, if both would play so beautifully, and they did.
Very, 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 very pleased with how it all came across. So,
Dennis, tell us about you now.
Hi. I was just listening. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks. Rolling back to when you were all talking about where do you go next. I've just I'm my own guy. I mean, I still have a flip phone. I have 8-track tapes if you want them. I've Googled solo festivals and have been shortlisted for Minneapolis and San Francisco. I am going to Tucson, Arizona next month. It was a lottery. So you can just go, you could just figure it out yourself. If the knuckleheads will take you, you go. So that was my retirement plan, to travel and do this nonsense and write it off as being a working freelance performer. And it was going fine till this COVID stuff. But so, right now I'll do it in any rich person's home that has guests and a lot of cocktails, and I'll drop a hat, because my stuff, as you've seen, is completely portable. It's almost like you have a radio on and I'm not even there. I do admire Gene Shepard, who used to do a radio show where he would fill in hours talking about stories with his father and the kids on the block. That was kind of in the back of my mind, deep on Kid from Queens. I often have a title and I write something down and then I see where that's going to go. And over time, that's what's happened. A Typhoon of Tenderness was a title I had on a little scrap of paper. And I built up that story about my life as a drug addict all the way through, from that thought of that. Kid from Queens is just like people have said to me in Vermont, like, where are you from? And I said, I'm just a cop's kid from Queens, blue collar kid. And that stuck in my head. And then the idea of this, because the story is a little bit about going home. And if you really do go home, and it was about my neighborhood, very specific neighborhood. And I try to, through just storytelling and description, tell you about that. And I narrate me being there, and hopefully you can go along with me. I had this other idea, and I blocked it out for this. It was going to be called either All the Ladies or Ladies Only. You got that? And it was going to be starting with my mother, all the women that I have either messed up their lives or they've been involved in mine. My mother, my sisters, a couple of wives, the girlfriends, some of the, I don't know what you would call it, but I've been rejected quite a bit, and the other way around. So I don't know, that could probably get me, who knows what kind of trouble with this culture we're in, but it would be basically from their point of view, where the common denominator was hanging out with me. And there's the idea that what I thought I was bringing to it was not always what I was bringing to it. And so I don't know where that'll go, but that might be where I'm going to go with this next thing. But
I want to see that.
I have another title for you. It's Rejection, a Love Story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Love is never having to say.
I love it.
Yeah, what was Eric Siegel? That little skinny book with Ali McGraw. Yeah. So, I also like the idea, the ancient idea, or my suppressed idea to be a stand-up. And I've watched all these comedy specials on Netflix that where, like a Chappelle, somebody can stand there for an hour, just stand there with a water bottle or nothing, and hold an audience through a transition of something going from here to there. And whether they let, and I'm not trying to make anybody laugh, but I was always captivated by the idea that someone could do that. And I've had teachers who've done that with me, being a student in their classroom. I've had friends of mine who could do that with telling tremendous stories. So I've been immersed in a group of men over my life who have, I used to drink on Fridays, first Friday of every month, with a bunch of guys. And we had guys who could do entire episodes of I, Claudius, like memorized, episode 11. And they would do all the dialogue. These characters just had these incredible memories, and they could recreate this stuff, the Vietnam War, anything. We had one guy, Kevin, who could take you to a battlefield as if he was there, and he never went to Vietnam, but he was so good at telling the story that you were there. So I admire that ability. I don't know if I've got some of that, but I have this way of creating scenes. So it's very intuitive. It's not like I'm going to sit down and pound this out. It sort of works the way it does for me. And, you know, this thing that I did there definitely needs some help from somebody, maybe me, and, you know, to sort of strengthen it somehow. But that'll come if I do it a few more times in a few more places and get some feedback. So, Blake, you were so helpful with this because you're the first person who has sort of, whatever you want to call it, directed, shaped, done any of this. I've really done these things, these 3 or 4 of these alone. And you know, so it's traditionally, I'm a storyteller, or it's a monologue. It's not a performance in terms of the way some of you have done this with props and you know, and music and lighting and all that stuff. I just can't do those things, but I can do what I can do. So yeah, Tucson, I've applied there before, and they let me know that I'm in, and I'm like, oh, so now I'm gonna go. And that's in a month. And so look out, Arizona. And I've got I've got 3 shows, and the deal with them is you keep all your money. Any tickets that you sell, it's all yours, which these other festivals don't often do. United Solo is top heavy. You got to pay about $500 just to get in.
More than that, I think it's almost 800 now.
Yeah, yeah, and you get a half-hour tech, and then you get 1 show.
And then you
Unless
get
you're held
25% of the profits.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
You're always out.
I got $87 the first time I was there. So
You're always
yeah.
out.
yeah, you're out. So that's because they're top heavy with overhead and interns and all of that. So, but you know, I don't care. I mean, I'm getting to travel a little bit. I've been to Rhode Island. I've been to Prague. I've been to you know, Edinburgh. I've been to you. So you know, that's enough for a guy like me who's like not even trying in a way to, like, you know, book and all of this stuff. You know, it's skipping along kind of nicely, and I have fun doing it.
I have a question for you.
Yes, I got a QLab thing I got to talk about
statement,
later.
and the
Yeah,
statement is the thing you know, I enjoy watching you. Obviously, you know, we've involved you a lot here. Tell me when you must know that the audience is with you, and you must know that the audience is with you throughout. What does that feel like when you're doing this long form monologue? And I also admire you tremendously because your energy stays the same throughout. I don't see a time where, you know, we're talking about an hour long, and actually 70 minutes with your piece. And what does that feel like? And do you know that they're with you?
It feels it's as frightening as any of the rest of us here stepping out there and wondering what's going to happen, I would think. And then you begin, and I'll use the word tickled, or you know, there's some humility involved in the fact that it's sort of it validates the fact that actually this is coming across. In other words, it is reaching somebody. And you know, I've been in theater productions and stuff where audience, you don't even hear anyone breathing, and you would assume, is there anybody, you know, the whole comedy thing, is this mic on, you know, hello? And then people after the show say that was the most amazing thing we've ever seen, and they didn't laugh at any laugh lines and all this other stuff. So it's, in a way, it's not predictable. But in most of mine, in every one of the places I've done it, and I've done it for 3 people and 20 people and 60 people, and there's a reaction. And to me, if you're an artist or a poet or a songwriter or whatever you're doing, and you get that, I mean, it's palpable on stage because it is. It's not the same as if somebody said, I read your book, it was kind of nice, or I saw the painting in the museum, but you know, you're the guy that painted it. You know, our medium is like, it's really right there. So I'm actually surprised that people don't open their candy or get up and walk out and say, are there any refunds available for this? You know, and but that's my own fear speaking. It's never turned out that way. So what I've gotten instead is a connection from people who said, you know, that reminded me of, and then they fill in the same sort of scenario or the same part of their life, only, you know, I remember I did Who Made Me in Vermont, and it was about 6 people, and this woman came up to me and I said to her, was I too harsh on the school sisters in Notre Dame, these nuns? And she said, no. She said, I think you were quite brave to be as honest as you were about your experience. And she goes, by the way, I was a nun at one time. And I thought, well, that's the highest compliment I could have gotten. I've got a former nun telling me she enjoyed it. So, I mean, I can remember those things, you know, and it's, you know, and there's been negative things too, but I don't know if I'm really answering the question, but I think it's just, you know, and down there, I was surprised that, you know, people clap, they stay and they talk to you. I mean, it's like, oh, okay. I mean, I still have this feeling like this, what am I doing up here? You know, you're a complete fraud, you know, but then when, you know, I look at Mort Saul passing and some of these guys that did this kind of stuff, who just came out and sat on a stool and could go for an hour. I mean, I'm just lucky that I could give that a shot. So
I think all artists are a fraud at some point in their own mind.
Yeah.
yeah,
Judy,
that's part of it. Yeah.
Judi
Dench will
Dench's
claim,
definitely.
they're going to figure me out on the first rehearsal. They're going to figure out I'm not really an actress. I don't belong here. I don't know what I'm doing.
She still says that. She's a national treasure.
Dennis, you're full of truth and you're full of universality. I mean, your stories are true to you. Therefore, they're true to all of us in some form. We all get something from them. And I love your honesty in that you never quite know if it's going to reach them, because it's that thing in your head that always tells you it's possible it won't happen this time.
That's true for any writer or playwright or poet or songwriter or whatever. I mean, most of them are not doing it for an audience necessarily at all. So that I think, you know, I mean, sometimes you're doing it. I mean, we're doing this to be performed for an audience, but that's not why we're doing it. We have to get something out.
You've just helped define the difference between classic storytelling and what you do. We've tried to define this along the way, because every solo play is storytelling. Yes, storytelling is in what we do, but classic storytelling is a mode, and it's a style, and it's a way of being. And in classic storytelling, you must be aware of what the audience is doing and letting them tell you everything along the way. You are doing it specifically for them.
Right. And Paula, you also have created stories, but you also, a lot of them were personal. So you have a chance to, like he's coming from his own personal stories. Sylvia, you created a character of Thierry. But were there personal things that you found in your piece? And Clara, yours was about Mrs. Marx. Did you also find personal things in it? Talk about that.
Oh yeah, I think when you're writing, it's like almost the subconscious is coming out. And I find as an actor, I like hiding behind characters, and as a comedian, I also hide behind characters because I do character comedy. And I think it's a kind of a way of saying this is kind of what I believe, but you're not putting yourself out there, even though you are. That's how I get away with it anyway. So yeah, I think when you're writing, it's sometimes you don't know where it comes from, and you realize, well, that was inspiration, that was subconscious, that was something made me write that. So it is you ultimately.
Clara?
One of my 2 favorite method acting teachers always says, you always find a character or always play a role or always write a thing, a piece of art if you know something about what you're writing, if you know something about that character. For example, Yelena in Uncle Vanya, I know something about being a privileged bitch who gets what she wants. I know that character. And Mrs. Marx, for me, I know that woman who feels fragmented, who feels judged, who feels trapped in a female's body in a man's world, who doesn't even identify as a female, who feels like she has to be the brains, who has access to stuff that she doesn't quite understand, who's confused by her own brain, who's confused by the judgment of humanity. So that's, for me, it's a deeply personal play. Jenny Marx, I love her, but she's an excuse for me to have told this story through that, to analyze fragmentation and psychosis through her.
We had an audience member over the other day who saw your show and said he's still haunted by you coming out into the audience and giving him beads. Yes. He will look down in his hands and he gets haunted by that. Talk about that. So talk about what that was all about.
I'm gonna cry. Can you please hug this audience member when you
absolutely. He's haunted to this day. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want him to sleep, but I also think that's important. So there's a scene, this moment in the play where Jenny Marx reveals the 7 children that she had and how they each died. And most of her children have had pretty horrific deaths, suicide, or, very intense diseases and illnesses, or very, very young deaths. And so I mean, it's a long analysis, but I give the audience interactively, mask covered these days and into the space and sanitized hands, beads, Mardi Gras beads, essentially. And each of these Mardi Gras necklaces represents one of these children. And I invite the audience to hold each of these children so that they're there in the burial ground with me. And then later in the play, I make analogy to these beads as niggling, negative, nasty little worm-like thoughts in your head that sort of dangle and get in your way, right? The sort of sound of beads and this irritating child chatter, and how we perceive one another through that. So that's that moment that we're referencing. That's huge. Please, that's really amazing feedback. Thank you. It's important to sort of hold space together.
We got tremendous feedback from all of you. It was a positive experience from our audience that said it was an incredible 4 group. And those who were lucky enough to see all 4 were really, really pleased by it, because you were so different and yet so like a little company. It was a wonderful experience.
Some have said it was their favorite full season, their favorite foursome.
Group high five team! Woo!
That means we all have to go on the road together.
So, where are you going, Dennis? We'll follow you. Where are we going next month?
Tucson, Arizona.
Yes, we'll
be there.
I love it.
All right. And then we have to go to Scotland, and then we have to go to Australia. And then
we're going to California.
We've only just begun.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to just dominate this. Do you guys have conversations or questions with each other?
It's just nice to know you're out there, because I feel like now, I have a couple other ideas for solo shows, and I just feel like, I just feel like it's nice to be part of a community.
Yes, very much so.
All 4 of you also have this connection. I hope that you to email each other and say, hey, I got this thing that I'm doing. You want to hear it? Because you are a part of the solo.
And I have to say this, that Sylvia, we haven't given you your certificate yet, but you are now a part of the Solo Academy, not United Solo.
No.
Sarasolo
Academy.
The other 3 are part already because they participated in different ways.
That means you can advise us on someone else that might needs some work or interested. You can mentor somebody. You can, we used to give out awards. We just don't do that anymore. But you could have voted.
A silly.
Kind of silly.
Best of show.
You're a part of the Sarasolo Academy, so by all means, you are always the first to come up with an idea and come into it again.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful.
I want to speak to that actually. I'm really excited to be this part of this team of 4, and let's stay in contact and have a
Indeed.
But I have to thank Annie and Blake tremendously. My first solo experience was 17. I wrote a play about sex workers. I performed it in Australia. I won Best Actress. I'm blah, 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 blah. I got a nice little crumpler bag and an agent. Blah, blah, blah. And I was so alone. I was so alone. And then I met Blake on set of this really great film we did. It was a student piece. It was wonderful. And you've created community and family for us. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. You do it in a way that, I mean, having toured solo shows in the spaces, it's there, but you two do it really in a way that's really profound and meaningful. And I'm still in contact with Valerie and a bunch of other folk and Heather. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think one of the hardest parts for me is during the creative process is the motivation, the self-motivation. It's like,
Mhm.
I have to rehearse this for myself. You know, it's just, that's, so also just to bounce ideas and maybe even rehearse with someone would be really helpful.
Mhm.
And solo theater, it's like, as Dennis has done, he's done it in the past with just himself, but it's really lovely to have that third eye.
Mhm.
And whether you want to call them your director or just the third eye,
Yeah.
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
give that other, to be the audience for you, because solo theater is all about you in the audience.
Yeah.
It's helpful to have that audience before you are with an audience.
Mhm. Mhm.
Give you that, give you
I selfishly, I think is the word, but maybe not. You know, I have a long, my real career was in school. And when Clara and I went into that high school, it made me want to know if I could wiggle myself into some sort of, you know, three-week sessions or something going into those kids, specifically talking about storytelling. I had done it up here at an elementary school for a couple of days with like a 5th grade. And, you know, these kids were like, I don't have any stories. And I'm like, if you close your eyes, you have one right now in your head. And they all did. And I said, just start writing it down. And the stuff that came out of these kids was so touching and profound and personal and dangerous, where these kids were telling stories about, you know, divorces and the bike being stolen and being bullied and all this other stuff. And they got up and did it, no notes, in front of the class. So I you know, I work with kids, so that's something I would be curious to try and get in with you guys with either Booker or that high school and be down there for like a
those
while.
who don't
if you could do
know,
it. We'll talk about it.
both Clara and Dennis came from out of town, so we thought it might be fun for them to come in, because Blake and I teach in several of the schools here in Sarasota, Soul Theater Development, and Booker High School's Visual and Performing Arts Center. Our class now is part of the curriculum, so we thought it'd be fun for them to come in and talk about what they do. If the kids had a chance to come and see it, that would be really, really lovely. And then demonstrate a little bit of what they do. And then both were invited to come and see, because unfortunately they also had a show the same weekend as the festival, but they allowed you guys to come in and watch their performances, which was unbelievably meaningful for them. So I would love to, like, both Sylvia and Paula, if that's something you're interested, to come into the class, because this particular class with Booker High School is not just solo playwriting. It is all aspects of solo theater development. So they learn about cabaret development or physical theater or spoken word or performance art, and to have as many different kinds of people who are doing it come in and speak would be lovely.
And we can
I'd
demonstrate.
love to.
And we
Yeah.
also we do a lot of YouTube videos, and because we have a whole channel now on our Sarasolo TV, they get that. But the fact that there were 2 adult professionals in the classroom, actually, we had some. I would say probably half of them changed their mode. They changed the way they were going to tell their story based on
Because of you
what they
guys.
saw from the 2 of you. And a lot of them are combining what they're doing with what they're defining as spoken word, because they found the value in that. Partly, Clara, because you did the beautiful poetry, and Dennis, because your words are poetry, and they really, I think this made them really understand what spoken word was. It's delightful, and they were clearly responsive to it.
Right.
That was
And
great.
What,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, what brought that for me to say this was when we were finished, this one young lady cornered me in the room and she spoke to me for about 10-15 minutes because she was curious, like, how did you do that? It was like, how did, where do you start?
Right.
That's what made me think like it could easily be a workshop or two, like, three periods where they, beginning, middle, try it, come back and then present.
And both Paula and Sylvia, because you also have musical.
Yeah, because there's a lot of kids who want to do just that. Yeah.
Who want to do cabaret or musical type stuff.
Yeah.
I would love to invite you to come in and also it's
Okay.
to talk. But
Anytime.
know that there are other people who do it besides our teachers.
Yeah, sure. Love to, yeah,
That
anytime.
could be fun. That could be a lot of fun.
The point of their class is that they develop through the whole semester into December. In fact, right now they all 21 of them have something in some kind of development on paper. I don't think we've ever had this before, and they so that's what that form is. We also benefit because we're creating all the time and recreating the solo, which is development as well. So
Meaning the other, solo theater development for people that aren't in high school.
right, yeah, that's for
Yeah.
it's for adults and typically professionals,
Yeah.
and people who are meaning to actually perform something in a festival or somewhere around. We may have told you that it looks like Winter Festival will be our last hurrah with festivals.
In this way.
In this way, because we can have the same thing if we gather 4 of our the solo artists in one space within a week. Also, we can do the same kind of thing. But the idea of bringing people we don't know, we'll do that in the Winterfest. We've got a couple that are already done pieces that we're just bringing in because we want to.
But now we can focus on when someone is ready with something, then we could showcase them because we've developed other interesting places all around town where a festival where it's concentrated over a week is not always the easiest thing. But to like for instance, if Clara had a completely new idea and she says, I need to try this out somewhere, come to Sarasota and we will showcase it.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to worry about, we have to wait to a certain time so we have a certain amount of
Okay.
So I think one thing we can hear from you about, doesn't have to be right now and it wouldn't be, but is your idea of what that looks like. And that's helpful to us to try to figure out what we are not thinking about is necessary, for instance.
And I love the idea, Clara, that you were talking about asking the audience where they think an artist could go. That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're friends by this time. It's intimate. We in terms of, let's talk about showing the videos that I did, and actually me completing them too. It's almost an hour. Is everybody okay? All right.
So we'll finish up in the next 5 minutes. Yeah.
We're talking about each of you individually about what it looks like. I'm not terrifically happy with the videos being anything but an archival idea, because if I were to film these pieces, they would look different. They're all from one seat, really, in the theater. They certainly give one the idea that they're sitting in watching this piece. It's all it looks good. It's well heard. We've been back and forth, especially with Clara. We're looking at what happens if we do decide that we want to do a virtual presentation of these 4 pieces. So we want some input from each of you about that. Probably it would be we would ask people to pay $10 to watch any given piece, so that there's also some extra remuneration, extra money for each of you if we show it. So that would be kind of cool. And
And there's things we have to think about. For instance, Clara's show, she goes out into the house.
Right.
The camera can't follow that.
Right.
So
it's a
what
nice and
what
wonderful blend.
happens when she leaves the stage and we do a presentation of that? Is it something that we intersperse
Yeah.
hands, or is that something that you devise and we
Yeah.
put it in that
But that's
space? I mean, these are things to
Yeah,
think about.
That's another thing. The other, I'm leaving that now. We'll all have our own conversations about all that stuff too. And just letting you know, Giving Tuesday is the 20th, November
No,
20th.
excuse me, it's the 30th
Oh,
of
God.
November. Yeah.
It's almost the 20th now.
Yeah. No, it's the 30th.
It's the 30th. That's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And we are planning to do something within that 24-hour period that is based in our Solo
Educational,
Synergy,
yeah.
based in our education. And we've gotten a lot of students already saying, Solo Synergy is great. I love it. Annie, Blake, blah, 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 blah. And it's really nice to have that. Education is a great way for us to raise money, and we really need to. So we're looking for that, and we'll let you all be informed about that. I would love to
tell
have
people.
a streaming time, maybe a couple hours like we did with the Giving Challenge last year, 2 years ago, where we are online maybe for 2 hours, and then other people come in and talk. So we'll talk to you about that possibility of coming in and
We're
talking about our
teaching
program.
that day.
We are
It
teaching
might
that
be
day.
kind of fun if we get permission to film the classes during that day.
Ooh.
Ah.
That's the inspiration came. I'm sure that, they all have permission to be
Great.
filmed anyway, so that might be kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and then we throw that right up on the screen, right? Sure. Okay. I know how that's going to go technically. So good.
Well, thank you, everybody. Does anybody else have a last minute thing they want to say to one another, or blah 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 blah?
Just I hope we can do more, even though the festival as we know it is ending soon. But I hope we can do more.
Well, because the purpose of this starting the Sarasolo is because we wanted to have a retreat for solo artists to come and be in a place where they can do what you just did. So it isn't just you off in your house somewhere. You have a place where you can go where you have fellow artists, and it becomes, we've already started with the solo this summer. We have 6 people who are in that process right now, and they know that they are a power of 6, that they know that they can email each other and share. And they said, you absolutely have to kick us in the butt. So we're going to meet in December with the idea that maybe in the Winterfest, they could all present 10 minutes of something that they have. And they become very close. That was the purpose of Sarasolo. So we will eventually have that. And you will be able to come down and develop.
And we will be able to come up and develop.
Yeah.
We will be mobile in that
Yeah.
way. That's the plan, is to go to California, to go to New
That's
York.
the plan,
Go to
man.
Michigan, go to all the
Ireland.
places. Go to Vermont and do some stuff.
Scotland.
I wonder if for Giving Tuesday, if you're able to film the students, if you have a few solo artists scheduled to come in and pop by, and we each like share an exercise that we want the students to do, and we do it ourselves.
Wonderful.
Oh, wow.
What a great idea. Paula?
Oh.
Just thinking.
All right, we're going to...
Just thinking.
Yeah.
All right. Love you
Sylvia.
all so much. I'm going to get emotional.
Aww.
Say goodbye so much when the festivals are over, but now, no, we have to keep these going. We have to keep these going.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And please
Yeah.
keep in contact with each other. Please, please, please. Okay.
For sure. I have 2 ideas that I want to start, working on.
Okay. Okay.
Yay.
You say, hey, I need an audience. We'll just get everybody to zoom in.
Please. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love you,
We
man.
have the Sarasolo alumni page. We have the Sarasolo Festival page, don't we? Yeah. Let's do like an alumni call.
I'm going to start a page.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
It'll be a page on our website, and because we need to know what people are doing.
Well, that's what I want to do. I want to go from 2015.
Yeah.
Every artist find out what they're doing now and just track that.
Fun.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Love
Love
you.
it.
Thank you, Annie and Blake.
Love you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Blessed
you
holiday
all.
seasons.
Thank you.
Yeah, and be safe, everybody.
Until next time, right?
Until next
Until
time.
Next
until
time.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.